We are the MTG Dudes bringing you another video about Magic the Gathering. Today we are going to talk about blue cards that are not creatures, and I looks like our list is going to start with the counter spell. So go ahead, buddy.
All right, so we're going to cover this in kind of three categories. Blue non-creatures. We're going to have what because it's a blue deck. You want the must-haves. Then I have an honorable mention, and then we're going to go to our top fives. So in the must, it's kind of a general category, but I have one card specific I put on there because it's counter spells. Counter spells are very essential because somebody plays something, you pretty much say no.
Hate counter spells. I absolutely despise the counter spell. I always have. I had a bad experience in my early Magic career that I talked about in another video. And yeah, if you're playing blue, you're foolish if you're not playing at least a few counter spells, be it the actual counter spell or other things that will counter.
No, we have a couple cards on our list that are there for specific reasons, but this is kind of just a general listing. So, yeah, counter spells I think are important. And the other one, and again, this one's going to be on the list later, but I forgot to put one on there. But card draw. I have opt on there, but basically, blue again, one of the big things they do is card draw. You can just build decks around it. You can take over a game with it. I mean, you can do so much stuff with card draw.
Yeah, Opt is actually on my top five list, but it's good for three reasons. Well, more than that, but it's only one to cast.
I'm just talking about card draw in general.
Yeah, card draw is pretty much what blue does. That's the bread and butter of the color, and it's blue does that better than any other color.
Yeah. So we're going to get into honorable mention. And the biggest reason why honorable mention is this card is because, and not in the main deck, is because it's so stinking expensive, but it does so much. Mass manipulation is a XX, so you need, already can tell, you need 2 mana just to have it do its thing, plus 4 blue on top of that. So you better have a lot of mana going. But you gain control of X target creatures and or planeswalkers. The thing I like about it is if you got enough mana, you can literally steal a board. But the problem is it is very, very cost heavy.
Yeah, I don't use mass manipulation in any of my decks, even the ones that have infinite mana combos. I think there are better ways to do what it does, and it's certainly useful, but again, it is such a heavy cost to do its thing. It's difficult to get the most out of it.
Yeah. You have to have a lot of mana acceleration to be able to do it. And there's ways to do it. In general, I don't play it unless it's a lot of mana heavy games, which I have done. Um, but let's go ahead and start with your number one. And now I'll let you talk about it.
Okay, Opt. One blue, instant. Scry one, draw a card. So I absolutely love this. It goes into every deck I have that has blue in it, whether it's Commander or any other format. It's just such a good value. For only 1 mana, you're scrying one. If you don't like what you see, throw it underneath your library and then draw the next card. It's such a great value, and again, it happens at instant speed, so you can do it on your opponent's turn or your own, depending on what your need is.
I know when you're playing 60 card, one of the best things to do is discard. It's very useful, it's very handy, and it's cheap. I
Mm-hmm.
mean, draw spells in general are usually pretty cheap, but Opt is just above and beyond most of the other ones. And at the beginning of the video, when I was saying must haves, it was kind of an example But yeah, there's a reason why this is on his top 5. I mean, if he didn't have it, I'd probably be putting it on mine too. But I figured he would. Just because, I mean, it's so utility. Next card we're going to talk about, I'm going to start with Cyclonic Rift. This card, again, is one of those cards in Commander that it comes in handy when you need it. If you draw it, it's really nice. Somebody goes attack all in. You can pay a blue and a colorless and it's an instant. And then you can return target non-land permanent you don't control to its owner's hand. If they're coming at you with a board full and you have 7 mana, you can pay 6 and a blue, and then that will instead of target, it will hit the opponent with each. So if they're hitting you with like 10 creatures and you overload it, then all 10 of those creatures are going to go back to their hand. It's very handy, very nice, and it prevents you from being overwhelmed.
Yes, it's also handy if you are trying to finish the game. You can just put their whole board back in their hand and bring it with everything you've got on board and very likely end the game, because at that point they just have lands, and if you're doing it on your turn, at least some of those lands will be tapped, so they won't be able to stop you from doing what you're trying to do.
Hopefully. They shouldn't. So we're going to hit your next one. Let's go ahead and hit that one.
Reflections of Litjara. This is a recent discovery of mine, and it's very handy in tribal decks. As its enchantment, 4 colorless into blue. As Reflection of Litjara enters the battlefield, choose a creature type. Merfolk, Pirate, Zombie, Wizard. Whenever you cast a spell of the chosen type, copy that spell. So you're essentially getting 2 creatures for the price of 1 at that point, as long as it's not a legendary. Yeah, Reflections of Litjara is a great value in tribal decks.
I don't really have anything to add to that. It's definitely a nice card. I'm not familiar with that card, honestly. So this one is...
We'll be seeing a lot of it soon.
Oh, I'm sure. This next card I've already mentioned in a couple videos, but it is probably by far become one of my favorite blue cards. It gets removed, it gets removed. I mean, it's a high target. I expect it to be removed. But if it doesn't, it's part of a 2-card combo. But I'm going to see. So blue and a colorless. An enchantment, so it goes on your board and stays on your board unless they remove it. And enchantments are one of the harder ones to remove. So, unless you're playing specific colors, it's hard to remove it. Whenever you draw a card, put a foreshadow counter on Ominous Seas. Then remove 8 foreshadow cards or counters from this card and create an 8/8 blue Kraken creature token. That's always nice because in blue, you're going to have a lot of card draw. So even if they do go to remove it, there's a good chance you could either have a counter spell or have more card draw that could lead you to a counter spell to protect it. And if not, then you still might be able to get the 8/8 blue creature out because of all your card draw you can have in blue. The other thing you can do is if you really absolutely need to, you can also cycle it for 2. You can discard the card and draw another card. I don't usually do that, but I have done that once or twice.
Another way you can utilize Ominous Seas is if you're playing things with Proliferate. You get the counter on it, and then you play something that lets you proliferate, and you can add a counter of any type to a permanent you control that already has that counter on it. So even if you only get 1 or 2 initially, you can proliferate the rest and still be able to pull the trigger.
And that's definitely another way, and that's just as handy, for sure. All right, so do you want to hit that one next?
Sure.
Okay.
Arcane Denial. This card was originally printed in Alliances, and it's 1 colorless and a blue, counter target spell. So a lot of blue's counter spells have a specific thing that you can target, this will counter anything, be it a creature, planeswalker, whatever. If it's gonna be trouble, it's countered. And then the spell's caster may draw 2 cards at the start of the next turn's upkeep, and you draw a card at the beginning of the next turn's upkeep. So it's a counter spell and a card draw. Excellent value for only 2 mana.
Now, the nice thing about Arcane Denial is, even if you're countering somebody else's stuff, you might feel bad about it. So, okay, I'll give you extra cards for it. At least you're giving them something in return. Not what they want, obviously, but you still are nice to give them something. But it still gives you a draw on top of that. So, yeah, definitely really nice. I just got comfy.
I get that.
So next one I'm going to is Jace, Wielder of Mysteries. There's a lot of good Jaces out there. And this, Ned mentioned Planeswalkers. This is actually probably one of the first ones we actually have on the list, I believe. On one of our lists. We might have had another one, but I don't remember doing so. But Jace, Wielder of Mysteries is a white, there is a colorless, and 3 blue. And if you would draw a card while your library has no cards in it, you win the game instead. So there's 2 cards in the game that does that, but he is one of them. And then you can +1 it. Target player puts top 2 cards of their library into their graveyard, then you get to draw a card. So that could be 3 cards. If you have some scry, you could leave some cards on top. Play this guy, get rid of one of those cards, and then draw into a better card, hopefully. His -8 is draw 7 cards, then if your library has no cards in it, you win the game. I don't know why that's listed on there since it's in the main text, but, I guess they want to make sure that you can win the game by going out. His loyalty starts at 4, so he takes quite a while to hit that, but realistically, his +1 is really what you want to do.
And again, blue does have plenty of things that proliferate, and you can do loyalty counters as proliferation as well. Mm-hmm. So it doesn't take forever to get to 8 necessarily, as if you're playing proliferation.
The big reason why I like it though is because I play a lot of combos with blue where you deck yourself out, and when you do, it's just nice to have that extra utility, so that we have 2 options instead of 1 in case somebody gets rid of the one.
Right.
Your next one, which one you want to go with? You want to go with that one?
Sure.
Okay.
Beacon of Tomorrows. This is a fairly heavy mana cost, and it's self-explanatory why. 6 colorless and 2 blue. Target player takes an extra turn after this one. Shuffle Beacon of Tomorrows into its owner's library. I've actually put this card into a time loop with the, let me think, it's archetype, no, not archetype. Oh boy.
Time Stream Navigator or something like that?
No, it's, anyway, it's an enchantment that, it's a blue enchantment. Whenever you draw a card, it gets a counter on it. And then, if it has 6 or more counters, if you would draw a card, instead you may search your library for anything and put that card into your hand. So you cast the beacon, and then on the start of your next turn, you just dig it back out again. And essentially it's always your turn. Your opponent can't do anything about it, and you end up winning because they have no turn.
Having extra turns on your cards is always a good thing for you and a bad thing for them. But yeah, if you can put an infinite loop on it, yeah, it's almost a quit. If they know that you're going to do that and they can't counter it, yeah, that's game. You should be able to win at that point.
Yeah, there are several blue cards that give you an extra turn, but I went with this one because it was the first one I managed to pull from a pack.
Well, it's that, and plus, I mean, it's one of the only ones that actually shuffles back into your library. So that's another reason why it's probably above any other one that's out there. So
Agreed.
that's another reason. So the next card we're going to go to is Kiara Best to See. This one has, again, we're talking high mana costs, but this one does a lot. It takes 3 turns for it to do its ultimate thing, but it's 5 and 2 blue. And the first thing it does when it comes onto play, it creates an 8/8 blue Kraken creature token with hexproof. So it's hard to remove that token on top of everything else because you can't target it. The second thing on the second turn that it's out, you tap all non-land permanents target opponent controls. They don't untap during their controller's next untap step. So not only are you targeting their non-land permanents, but you're also making it so they don't untap for 2 turns. And then the final thing on your third turn, you gain control of target permanent and opponent controls, and then you get to untap it. That is just a nasty, nasty effects that this thing can do on those 3 turns.
Yeah, it's hard to beat. We've already said enchantments are more difficult to remove than almost any other card type, and those 3 effects are just nasty by themselves, but one card doing all of them, it's awful.
I mean, if you don't beat them by turn 2, you're definitely going to do some major damage on turn 3 when you take their stuff.
Right.
All right, so your next one we're going to hit is Clear the Mind.
Clear the Mind. This is actually a card that you turned me on to in one of your decks, and it's become a mainstay in just about every blue deck I own. It's a sorcery, 2 colorless and a blue. Target player shuffles their graveyard into their library and then draw a card. So you're essentially getting back everything that you've played so far in the game that's been either destroyed or instants and sorceries. They're all coming back into your library, and then you're getting a card draw on top of it. It's tremendous value for 3 mana. The reshuffle alone would be worth it in my mind, but you get to draw a card in addition to that.
You can't beat it. I mean, there's nothing I like better is when somebody thinks they have you and they're constantly removing your stuff, and all of a sudden you're like, nope, I want more. So then you just reshuffle your stuff back in, and all of a sudden, I've had a person actually concede to that when they realized I had about 3 cards that did that in my decks. This one, Elixir of Immortality, and the Loaming Shaman. I was playing a blue, green, and another color. I don't remember what color it was. But yeah, I just kept putting stuff in my graveyard and then redrawing it, and it was just, I know the guy was just absolutely freaking irritated because he kept removing my stuff, and you can only remove stuff for so long.
Yeah, it's very tough to handle.
So then the last one kind of counters the card draw, which blue does a whole bunch of different stuff, and especially with the Planeswalkers. But Narset, part of Veils, I know I've frustrated some people with this card, but it's a colorless and 2 blue, another Planeswalker, a very simple one, really. But look at what she does. I'm going to cover the -2 first. Look at the top 4 cards of your library. You may reveal a non-creature, non-land card from among them and put it into your hand, but the rest on the bottom of your library in a random order. Now, being able to choose between one of 4 cards gives you, and Commander especially, gives you a really good variety, usually, because you'll at least have something that you really need out of those 4. It's 5 loyalty, so you get 2 triggers out of this if somebody doesn't try to kill it on the first time. But the thing I like about the most is the first effect on it. Each opponent cannot draw more than 1 card each turn. Ouch.
Yeah, limiting your opponent's card draw is a very useful thing specifically in the Commander format, because everybody does play some form of deck acceleration. And again, if you're playing Proliferation, you can get more loyalty counters and pull that trigger more than just twice. Deck manipulation is fantastic, whether you're drawing cards or scrying them or doing a little of both in this case. So it's it's really helpful to get to the one or two things you need to get around what your opponent is doing or to help your own deck cross the finish line.
I know one of the biggest things about Magic is the fact that you're trying to go out there and you're trying to get an advantage. And one of the best ways to get an advantage is card advantage. You get a bunch of draws, you scry, whatever. That is really a key to really getting an advantage in the game. And our set pretty much says you can do it, nobody else can. So it gives you a major advantage over everybody else. And they could have a bunch of draws, but it's just like the Hall Breacher. It shuts you down. I don't know if you have anything else to add to that. I think we covered these pretty good. But yeah, we had Christmas yesterday, so we wish you all a Merry Christmas. Yes, we're probably gonna post this one first. I know what I'm talking about. Technical difficulties in my brain because my brain just doesn't always function right. But we thank you guys for your time. Happy holidays. And please like, share, and subscribe. Thumbs up. That's all we're asking. Give your comments. What cards do you like? What cards do you not like? I don't know.
And maybe we skipped over something that you find more useful than the cards we've chosen. So share your ideas with us. We're always open to that. And we'll see you next time.
You guys have a good holidays.